Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Yashodhanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajakacharya Stotarashat Sri Śrimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Translation. Before reciting this Śrimad Bhāgavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So today, we're reading from the beautiful Śrimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, which is the creation of the fourth order, and we're in chapter 5, which is the frustration of the sacrifice of Daksha. We got it right, verse 10. Is it Brahma Samhita, or is that like a long? Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapa. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapa. Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendra. Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendra. Vitatya Nrityatu Titashtra Durdvajan. I'm not working for me. Vitatra Nityatu Titashtra Durdvajan. I don't think this is the meter. I'm sorry, everybody. Uchata Hasya Hasa Stana Itnu Bina Dik. It's a regular one, right? Yeah. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kala. I need to hear someone singing nice, and I can copy that. Swashula Suchi Arpita Dik Gajendraha. I'm stuck in Brahma Samhita. Vititya Nrityaya Udishastra Dordvajan. Uchata Hasya Stana Yitnu Binadik. Okay, please, esteemed devotees, do better than I did. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapa. Sashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha. Yatatya Nityatya Uditarcha Storjajan. Uchata Hasya Stani Yitnu Vinadik. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha. Yeah, much better. Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha. Vitatya Nrityatutitashtra Dordvajan. Uchata Hasa Stani Tu Vinadik. Gajendra Vitatya Nrityatutitastra Dordvajan Ulchataha Sastani Tubinadi Astvanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapa Sadashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nityatyuditastra Dordvajan Uchataha Sastani Tubinadi. Everyone. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nityastu Dudastra Dordojan Uchata Hastasthani Itnu Bin. Yastanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nrityatyuditastra Dordvajan Uchata Hasastana Yitnubina Dik. Vitatya Nrityatyuditastra Dordvajan Uchata Hasastana Yitnubina Dik. Alright, I want to do over. Yatwanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nrityatuditashta Dordvajan Uchata Hasya Stana Yitnubhinadi. Okay, Michael. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Sashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitata Nityatya Udyastra Dordvajan Uchata Hasya Stana Yitnubhinadi. Esteemed Matajis, pass. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Sashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nrityatyuditasta Dordvajan Uchata Hasastana Yitnubhinadi. Yes, Twanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Okay? Yaha who Lord Shiva to but Antakale at the time of dissolution, Vyukta having scattered, Jata Kalapaha his bunch of hair, Swashula his own trident, Suchi on the points, Arpita pierced, Dikgajendraha the rulers of the different directions, Vitatya scattering, Nityati Nityati dances, Udita upraised, Astra weapons, Doho hands, Dvajan flags, Ucha loud, Atahasa laughing, Stana Yitnu by the thundering sound, Bina divided, Dik the directions. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Purport. Prastuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rulers of the different planets, and his hair is scattered, just as the clouds are scattered over all the directions, in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and in that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prastuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's neglecting her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor of Lord Shiva. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katha Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sijivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshri Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangam Gayate Girum Yakripatam Ham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishram Hari Om Tat Sat Yatwanta Kale Vyukta Jata Kalapaha Swashula Sucharpita Diggajendraha Vitatya Nrityatyutistastra Dordvajan Uchata Hasastana Nubina Dik. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. So we're here in beginning of chapter 5, which Canto 4 is a lot about Lord Shiva, actually, in the beginning, and then later we'll go through Dhruva Maharaj, we'll hear about King Venu and King Prithu, then we'll hear about King Prachena, who was mentioned in a verse right before this. Like, they saw a big dust storm coming, and they thought, oh, that can't be a bunch of like Vikings or thieves or like a big thing of dacoits, because King Barhi is there and he's going to protect us. And so King Barhi Prachini, I can't remember. Yeah, Prachini Barishat, he has his sons, which are called the Prachetas, and the Prachetas really pleased the Lord, and so the Lord sent Lord Shiva directly to become their guru, and he taught them some mantras and some philosophy, and then they all chanted it and went back to Godhead. And so there's a lot, the Bhagavatam in general has a lot about Lord Shiva, but the fourth canto specifically. And so what's happening here is we've been hearing for so many chapters. I think the 10th canto about Krishna has 90 chapters, and Prahlad, I can't remember exactly how many, he has like about 10 or 12 chapters. Here we've got quite a few chapters about Lord Daksha and Lord Shiva. So it's many important lessons to learn. What's happening here is, as we've mostly all know, but I'll just make a short summary, that Daksha insulted Lord Shiva, and then Sati was warned by Lord Shiva to not go to the big sacrifice where all her family and friends were going, but she really wanted to go. And upon arriving, she was completely disrespected by Daksha, and Lord Shiva was insulted, and then so therefore she decided to give up her body. And upon that, all Lord Shiva's associates began to attack all the different brahmanas and different people there due to the offense that they made and being upset that Sati left. And one of the brahmanas then brought some of his Brahma Tejas, was able to push back some of these, I guess, demons and tamasic living entities that Lord Shiva was, that they were trying to serve Lord Shiva. So now Lord Shiva then summons his, it said it's the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which in essence, that's Lord Shiva. So he's summoning the essence of that in Virabhadra, this demon that is like very, very powerful and feels like he's fit to conquer anyone's strength. And so now he's coming and he's going to set things straight. And we can tell by the name of the chapter, the frustration of the sacrifice of Daksha. So the embodiment of that frustration is this Virabhadra who's coming. And in a moment of clarity, the wife of Daksha, Daksha had things twisted. Daksha thought he was supreme and he should be honored, and he had a position over Lord Shiva. Where his wife, she understood the reality, and in a couple of verses, I think from yesterday, today, and maybe tomorrow, she's telling things how it is. Where Daksha he may be a Prajapati, a mid-level demigod, but she's explaining Lord Shiva is much more powerful. You may have the power of Brahma. You're the son of Lord Brahma, and you're wielding, power equivalent to the Brahmastra, something like that. And you can do things related to Brahminical power. But Lord Shiva, at the time of dissolution, he is the one that's killing all the other demigods, even demigods that are more powerful than you, like Indra, or not killing, but he's the one that stops them. There's a reason why the world is temporary, and Lord Shiva is ultimately that final stop. Indra may rule for a long time, longer than Trump or longer than Obama or these different rulers that or like, how long has Putin been ruling Russia? How long has President Xi been ruling China? For a while, but not that long. Eventually, death is going to come to stop them or something. But for a demigod like Lord Indra, they have an extremely, for us, it's unimaginable length of life, but their end of their rule also comes, and that's due to Lord Shiva. And so Prastuti is explaining this to all the followers that, look, we're screwed. We did it. We we're done for, because he's angry. He's coming for us. We blaspheme him. We were talking behind his back, and then he got wind of it, and now he's pulling up. And what can we do? And so, the power of the Brahmastra versus the power of the, like, if you compare, like, Lord Shiva has his own personal weapon, the Pashupat Astra, which the Brahmastra is powerful, but it can't destroy the entire cosmic creation. When it's time, when it's actually time for the cosmic creation to be destroyed, Lord Shiva calls upon his Pashupatra, which ends up uses extreme heat to start to destroy everything, and that begins the whole process of universal dissolution. Where the Bhāgavatam talks about sarga and visarga, which is like creation and then like specific, like detailed creation. But along with creation, then you also have destruction, because the world is temporary. So Lord Shiva is the arbiter of that destruction. And so the power of a Brahmastra is nowhere near the power of the Pasupat Astra. But then we should also, because Lord Brahma, he's the power of creation. He presides over the mode of passion. He's teaching all these different fine arts and different things to give us, so we can live in our reality. And then Vishnu helps maintain everything. When the universe is created, there's so many unsolvable problems, which he jumps in and does the work to make sure that everything is straightened, so living entities can actually have a chance to exist. And then when it's time, then Lord Shiva, he's responsible for Tamagun. He's responsible for destroying everything. And in that destruction, there's four. In the 12th canto, it said there's four kinds of destruction. So you have constant annihilation, occasional annihilation, material annihilation, and final annihilation. These are very interesting categories. So who can think what is constant annihilation? What happens to in the perspective of the living entities? And what happens when the body decays? And then what happens when the body dies after, for the living entity? There's birth, right? So yeah, exactly. So the constant annihilation, it's like Lord Yudhisthira Maharaj said, everyone's being cooked in a pot, and the fire is time. Like we're just being cooked in the pot of time, and going through the cycle of birth and death. Who knows what? Most people don't know what birth they had last birth, and hardly anyone knows what birth they're going to have next birth. And no one knows when they're going to die, but definitely it's certain. And the most amazing thing is that most people act like they know that they're not going to die. But Yudhisthira Maharaj says when they ask, what is the most amazing thing? So that's constant annihilation. Then Lord Brahma he's created the universe, and he goes through, but he gets tired. He's got to sleep sometime. He's got to get his energy back, just like all of us. If we don't sleep, then everything gets messed up. So the Lord Brahma is more potent than us. He can go a while without sleeping, but when he sleeps, he's got to sleep. So we have one cycle of yugas, which Kali Yuga. Can someone help me with these calculations? How long is Kali Yuga? 400,000 years. And then you got 800,000 for the next one, for Dwarpa, and then 1,200,000 for the Treta Yuga, and then 1600,000 for the Satya Yuga. And you combine all those together, and that's one cycle of yugas. And you go through that 1,000 times, and that's one day of Lord Brahma. And then after that, he sleeps. So then what happens is, like Prabhupada is mentioning, Lord Shiva does his Palaya dance, and there's then a huge inundation of water, which basically covers everything. And all the living entities then get absorbed into the Lord, or at least the entities that are in the lower planetary systems. And then there's this occasional annihilation every day of Brahma. So that's occasional annihilation. But Lord Brahma, he also has a limited lifespan. Doesn't live forever. So after 360 days, that's one of Lord Brahma's years. And after 100 of those years, that's his lifetime is finished. So then at that time, then there's a terrible fire followed by a terrible rain, and this drowns everything. And then this like special flooding basically begins the process of all the elements collapsing back into one another, back into the Mahatattva, where we were reading in the third canto, how in the second canto, how everything begins from the Mahatattva or the Pradhan, and then slowly the subtle elements and then the more gross elements, finally with earth as like, the final element comes into being. So that's the material annihilation. And then who can guess? So there's four. Remember, there's four kinds of annihilation described in the 12th canto: constant, occasional, material, and final. So constant is. Do we remember? Constant is. Yeah. I mean, you agree? Yeah, you. Okay, good. That's right. Do you remember what occasional is? Who remembers occasional? Day of Lord Brahma. Yeah, when Lord Brahma sleeps during his night, then that's occasional. And it's just like it's like, who remembers the pastime of Matsya Avatar? Michael, do you remember that? Matsya Avatar, who wants to talk about Matsya Avatar? Ryan, tell him about Matsya Avatar. Yeah. The fish. Yeah. So what happens during the fish incarnation is that there's a torrential downpour which keeps, similar to my Guru Maharaj said that the story in the Bible of Noah and the ark is like a facsimile of Vaivasvata Manu and Matsya Avatar. And basically there's going to be one of these partial devastations. Occasional is also called like a partial devastation. And so much rain happens, and Vaivasvata Manu creates a boat, and then the boat is going in the water so crazily. But he's able to take the help of Matsya Avatar. So Lord Vishnu helps stabilize that. So then he can become the Manu, which he's now the presiding Manu over this age, which is nice. And sometimes there is a devastation which will happen outside of even when Lord Brahma is awake, but that's just due to the occasional desire of the Lord to reciprocate with his devotees. Like, I forget what canto it is. Maybe it's also the 12th canto, when Markandeya Rishi is asking the Lord, I want to see all this crazy stuff that happens at the time of dissolution. And then so he gets that. And so it's like an irregular one, which Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami describe. And Laghu Bhagavatamrita, if you want to look it up, Arjunananda. And so then so that's the occasional, and then the material dissolution is the dissolution of the entire material world. And then we have the final dissolution, the final annihilation. Can anyone guess what that is? No, that would be material or occasional. Jivas would go either way. Think even more. Go farther. Yeah, the soul. What does the soul destroy? Yeah. So this entire time, that the soul is in the material world. It's inextricably connected and identified with its subtle body. And then when the subtle body goes into a material body, then we become inextricably identified and connected with our material body. Like we think like these are my cheeks, my hands, like so therefore this is my shirt and my seat, and my house, and my car, and my friends, and so on and so forth, and it just keeps going. But then at the time of death, all right, maybe it wasn't mine. I was forced to get kicked out. But you go through that constant annihilation. Then when you're died, you have to be born again, and then when you're born, you have to die again. And so the final annihilation is when the person achieves factual knowledge of the absolute truth, or they understand reality factually, that no, I'm actually something beyond all these things. I'm actually not my mind. My mind is just a machine. I'm not my intelligence. I'm not my false ego. I'm not this gross material body. I'm completely beyond that. And there's one thing just saying it, like I'm just saying it now. And how many times have you heard, we're not your body? I mean, even a beginner that just walked in the door, they probably heard it 20, 30 times. So saying it is one thing, like kind of having just like data about it, but actually realizing it and factually understanding it, that's the time of final annihilation. And so, of course, final annihilation is really wonderful. And what does the Bhāgavatam say? There's a really beautiful verse. Samsara sindhu mati dustaram muti shor nanya plavo bhagavata purushottamasya lila kata rasa nishevanam humso bhavad vivada dukkha davadishaha. So for a person who is suffering in the fire of countless miseries and who is desiring to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, there is no suitable boat except that of cultivating devotion to the transcendental taste for the narration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastimes. And Prabhupada explains in the purport, or the servants of His Divine Grace, I think, explaining the purport. This is the 12th canto. Although it is not possible to completely describe the pastimes of the Lord, even a partial appreciation can save one from the unbearable miseries of material existence. The fever of material existence can be removed only by the medicine of the holy name and the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which are perfectly narrated in the Śrimad Bhāgavatam. So actually, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are an expansion of the holy name. Within the holy name, there's all the pastimes of the Lord. So when we're hearing the Bhāgavatam is showing us like how the holy name is expanded. It's said that hearing, especially Bhagavat Shravan, hearing of the Bhagavatam, is the Swarup Shakti, or the specific energy that allows the manifestation of the chanting of the holy name. So we're talking about all these different annihilations and why they have to happen. And the key for the final annihilation is that the actual self understands that it's apart from all this material things and begins to realize its actual true spiritual nature. And then on the other hand, we have all the selves, all the different living entities who don't realize that, who are the opposite of that, which is more or less my condition and many of our conditions, unless we're perfectly self-realized. And the Lord says, Sanivisto charim hridi sanivisto, that He's Narsarvasyacharam hridi sanivisto, that I'm situated in everyone's heart. And from Him, Matashmitir Ganama Pohanam Cha, He's giving remembrance of Him. If we want to remember Him and remember good things, He can help give us that. And if we want proper knowledge to be able to get out, we want to be able to hear the Bhagavatam, He can also give that to us. But for most people, He gives a pohanam cha. He gives them poha. No, that would be nice. I like poha. Even though sometimes people consider it low class. For us Americans, it's quite delicious. No, he gives, instead of apohanam chai, he gives them forgetfulness, because this whole reality is created by the Lord for the living entities, and for the living entities who don't want to be in his existence, he gives them the illusion of that. He provides that illusion. He provides that forgetfulness. And this forgetfulness is provided by the predominating deity of the mode of ignorance. So Lord Shiva is the predominating deity of the mode of ignorance, and his predominating deity is Sankarshan, or Anantadev, or you could say that's not different than Balaram in one sense. And so the Lord is very merciful to everyone, and even those who want to try to enjoy without him, he gives them this situation. And one possible realization they should have is, after experiencing so many samskaras of terrible death and all this constant annihilation and material annihilation and occasional annihilation, after experiencing all that, maybe they can wake up. There's a hope that can stimulate them to wake up. And all the while, there's constant opportunities for the living entity to turn towards the Lord. And instead of thinking, the living entity thinking, aham mameti, or I'm the Lord of everything, all I purvey, that I am I am supreme. Instead of thinking that there's a chance that maybe the living entity will turn to the Lord and think, oh, okay, there's another supreme that's besides me, and I'm subordinate, and therefore I should act in that relationship. If the entity then decides to act in that relationship, then they're properly using their opportunity, and they attain that final dissolution of all their subtle body, and they can attain a completely blissful existence with the Lord. But if they misuse that opportunity, then Sankarshan ultimately becomes angry, and then from his anger comes Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is the personified anger of the Supreme Lord, and that then has the constant dissolution of the material world. And which, then we were talking about Lord Daksha and his power against Lord Shiva, which is nothing. Lord Shiva has so much more potency, he's destroying the whole world. But if we hear in the Krishna book, Lord Shiva has his Pashupata Ashtra, which he actually, Arjuna got it, but then when Arjuna got it, they're like, you can't use that in any fight. It's like too powerful. Yeah, it'll just like it'll kill all the demigods. It'll kill all of us. Like, you can't actually use it. But Arjuna, even though he knew he couldn't use it, he still felt invincible just by having it. So then there's another famous thing in the Bhāgavatam, in the Krishna book, where Lord Shiva actually gets into a fight. He had his devotee Banasura, who pleased him, and when asking for a boon, he said, I want you to personally protect my kingdom. And so Banasura had Lord Shiva personally protecting his kingdom. And, who would you know but one of Lord Krishna's, his grandson, right? Usha and Aniruddha. Yeah, Aniruddha was the son, Pradyumna and Satyavati? Sati. Yeah, she was working for Banasura, and she found him in a fish and then became enamored, and they had Aniruddha as the son. And oh, am I mixing things up? I'm mixing things up. Anyways, let's just focus on the fighting. Yeah. So Banasura pleased Lord Shiva, and Lord Krishna was going to go and fight with Banasura over their grandson, because then there was a disagreement. It was like a shotgun wedding, and so And ultimately, when you're fighting, you always try to use like as least power as you need to, but then when it comes to it, you end up having to use your full strength, like if you're fighting an equal adversary. And so Lord Shiva is able to defeat different people, but then uh, when he's fighting Krishna, then he fires, then they fire their most powerful weapons. The Pasupatra Astra, which is something that destroys by heat, was then counteracted by Krishna's Narayan Astra, which has an even more powerful thing, coldness defeats heat. Um, they said like at the time of death, you end up getting some fever, but then that once your body's used all of its energy with that fever, then the body begins to get cold, and then it's over. There's very little chance the body can come back to life. And so in the fighting, there were so many kinds of ghosts that were like Lord Shiva is the predominating deity of the mode of ignorance. So he has so many ghosts that help him, and he's kind of like the shelter for the shelterless. Like so many different living entities, they're too grotesque or do too many things. Like they don't have any place with you know normal society, so that they can take shelter of him, and he can at least give them some sort of benefit. And so they were on the battlefield. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, simply drove all these ghosts away from the battlefield with arrows from his celebrated bow. Lord Shiva began to release all his selected weapons against the Personality of Godhead. And Lord Sri Krishna, without any difficulty, counteracted all these weapons with counter weapons. He counteracted the Brahmastra with another Brahmastra, and he counteracted an air weapon with a mountain weapon. When Lord Shiva released a particular weapon, bringing about a violent hurricane, Krishna presented just the opposing element, a mountain weapon, which checked the hurricane. Similarly, when Lord Shiva released his weapon of devastating fire, Krishna counteracted it with torrents of rain. And at last, when Lord Shiva released his personal weapon, the Pashupat Astra, Krishna immediately counteracted it with the Narayan Astra. Lord Shiva then became exasperated in fighting, and Krishna then took the opportunity to release his yawning weapon. When this weapon is released, the opposing party becomes tired, stops fighting, and begins to yawn. Consequently, Lord Shiva became so fatigued that he refused to fight. I wish Krishna would stop releasing that weapon like at all times of the day during most things. Constantly, Lord Shiva became so fatigued that he refused to fight anymore and began yawning. And eventually, Lord Krishna just defeats everyone in Balaram. And oh yeah, then when Lord Krishna saw that the Shiva Dvar had been released, then Shiva, as a last chance, releases his Shiva Dvar. He had no recourse other than to release the Narayan Dvar. And then it's talking about how the two weapons, there's great fight, and that the Shiva Dvar began to get defeated, and knew that it couldn't actually take shelter of Lord Shiva, and he went to take shelter of Krishna. And then that's how the battle ended. Basically, the whole battle is just showing how Lord Shiva is much more powerful than Daksha, how Brahminical Tejas is defeated by Shiva's Tejas, that the Vishnu or Narayan or Krishna's Tejas is the ultimate. So that's why maybe Shiva is directing over, the different modes of destruction. When we destroy our material bodies, he's involved. When the material universe is partially dissolved or completely dissolved, he's involved. But on the final destruction, the destruction of our subtle body, Lord Shiva, in terms of him being a devotee, which is a whole big topic, he's involved. But it's ultimately the Lord that's involved in the final dissolution of the final destruction of the living entity's subtle body. And so therefore the the Supreme Lord is the ultimate shelter. Not family, not like Daksha was certainly not the shelter of any of his friends that got messed up, and even Lord Shiva is not the complete shelter. But Lord Krishna is the ultimate shelter. And so we are still going through this episode of Daksha, and Virabhadra will come. We'll hear very soon, and he'll start to rip out the mustache of Brigu and start to do all kinds of really wild things and mess it up. And I guess one last thing I'd like to say is that it's really interesting when you look at the geological history of the world and compare it to the time frame of the Bhāgavatam. One of my friends wrote a whole book, and one section is about Daksha. And so Daksha is a progenitor. He's in charge of making sure there's different living entities. And if you look at what modern scientists try to deduce based on their sense perception, they have a thing called the boring billion, which is a billion years where essentially nothing happened evolutionary. No like new living entities came about. But then suddenly after that, there's the Cambrian explosion. And if you match the timing, the beginning of the boring billion is when we're about to hear, when Daksha gets killed by Virabhadra. And then a billion years goes by until he can actually everything turns out okay. He ends up coming back. And then when he comes back, then we have the Cambrian explosion, all the many different living entities coming. So the Bhagavatam is giving us subtle knowledge that can, if we trust it, we can save a lot of time and frustration. Otherwise, it'll ultimately be proved by whatever knowledge we try to gain through any kind of bona fide means. And with that, there's 2 minutes if anyone wants to make a contribution. Senior devotees first. You don't need to speak in the mic, just speak into the...
Yes, I was thinking about the beautiful point that...
No, just give him the small mic.
The Lord Shiva was leading all these ghosts and tamasic people, but then there was a Brahmin that was with his Brahmin tage was able to push back.
Yeah, that happened just before. Yeah,
I was thinking how Srila Prabhupada was a powerful Brahmin, a powerful pure devotee to push back the tamasic Kali Yuga, age of Kali Yuga. And so that was a beautiful little point there.
Nice.
And then the leaders are always leading according to their capabilities. So, Lord Shiva was leading the ghosts and so hobgoblins. So Srila Prabhupada also was leading all the great devotees, all the pure souls. And then we're seeing in the present time in ISKCON, many of the leaders, they are leading many different devotees in different capacities, and they are pushing back the Kali Yuga influence. So with those little points in the purport, I thought my mind was just going there.
When you said the first point, it reminded me also, Prabhupada was known as he was also a transcendental ghostbuster. There'd be haunted houses that no one would want to rent, and he would get a cheap rent on them when he was traveling India because of his purity of his heart. It would push back all that tamasic, kind of stuff. So it reminded me of that too.
And his books, his purity is in his books. So if someone were to read his books, they would be able to kill the influence of Kali Yuga in their mind.
The fever of material existence can be removed only by the medicine of the holy name and the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which are perfectly narrated in Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Hari Om Tat Sat, Śrimad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. If there's any more discussions, we can have it during Prasadam. Thank you for attending and tolerating me. This class was kind of hard to speak. It didn't seem like there was much in the verse, and I'm not very good at speaking outside of that. Hare Krishna.